call the planning board meeting for the Village of Webster to order this Thursday, September 7th. We have two items on the agenda, and we have a special guest with us this evening, Mr. Ed Atkinson from the Historic Preservation Board, would like to present to us. So without further ado, if the board would take a few moments to review the minutes from last month's meeting. If there are any corrections or alterations, please bring them forth. Otherwise, I will take a motion to accept the minutes into the record, and then we can move on to our agenda. Oh,
I'm agreeing.
that's good. All right. I've read them. I don't have any changes or anything to add, so would anyone care to make a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of August 3rd,
Thank you.
2017.
And a second?
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay, on the agenda this evening, we have a proposal from Michael Milano of Clinton Signs, representing 40 North Avenue, to install a 28 square foot freestanding business directory sign. And if I'm not mistaken, I still don't see Mr. Milano from last month, nor this month. So we will just move on to the second item on the agenda. It's going to be a good meeting. All right, we have the second item on the agenda, Barry Barone, representing Todd and Michelle King of 37 Meadow Drive. Applicant would like to rebuild their home after a fire, and they would like to, with the construction of the new home, add a larger garage and a front porch. The current village code allows for a 600 square foot garage to be constructed, and their proposal is for, according to the blueprint, 686 square feet, but the application says 720.
720.
So you want to go contrary, bigger than what's shown on the plan.
That's correct.
20 by 30 versus 20 by 28 7. Okay. And then you are also looking for a 5-foot setback variance recommendation to the zoning board to construct the front porch. Do I have that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So,
Do I need this microphone or not? Don't worry.
just wrap up.
Good. I'm Barry Barone. I'm representing the Kings. Todd's here tonight. If you have any questions for him, Todd King. Unfortunately, their house was heavily damaged by fire. I think it was last February. February. After lengthy negotiations with the insurance company and estimates from us, and we actually found that it was more cost effective to take down the house to the foundation and rebuild it rather than try and fix the fire damaged house. The costs were close. The advantage of obviously taking it down is now we're going to rebuild it to today's code, 2x6 walls, low E-glass windows, the insulation code, the electrical, everything just to today's code. But we had to save the foundation to make it work as far as costs. So we had our architect design a more modern home on that existing foundation, and it worked. It turned out to be a very nice plan. Through the process, Todd said, well, as long as I'm rebuilding this house, I'd like to put a larger garage on it. The original garage on the house, as most of the garage, 20 by 20. There's some standard for a two-car garage. So what we did is we made it 24 feet out and 30 feet deep. So from the street, it's only 24 feet. Visually, it only looks like a 24-foot garage. I didn't realize that this conflict with the village zoning code until, Will reviewed the plan. Now, the front porch, on the other hand, since we saved the foundation, the old house didn't really have a covered porch, it had a stoop. And the front stoop didn't show up on the map, so that was actually encroaching by 4 feet. Well, when the surveyor did the map, he showed the house without the stoop, and it looked like it was at the 40-foot front setback, which is a requirement there. So, when our architect, Crane Engineering, drew the plan, he said, boy, this house would look great with a front porch on it. So he drew the porch and so on. And we knew that was too close to the line, but I couldn't move the house back because we're using the same foundation over it. So Will said, you have to get variance for the porch, obviously. And then he said, by the way, the garage doesn't comply either. So that's why we're here for these two items. I understand the code is somewhat restrictive on the garage because there's been some bad experiences in the village with people building huge garages, and the village board wants to control that. So, but a 24-foot by 30-foot deep garage is not excessive. It's not even a 3-car. He just wants to be able to pull his cars in, 2 cars, and still have some room in the back for a little storage, maybe a workbench. So it's, so he's not asking for a huge amount of extra square footage, but enough to just serve his purpose. You have anything to add? Did I cover it?
That's about it.
Okay. So as long as he's building the house again, he wanted the garage and the front porch both, if the zoning board approves of it.
So, all right, I just have a few basic questions. I noticed in the plan, you didn't provide a survey of the existing lot, so I can't see what the setbacks are from the side lots. We know you're asking for a 5-foot variance for the front porch, so.
There was no survey in the package?
No, we got pages.
Oh, we made, I think, 16 copies of the survey. I'll be happy to show the board. I brought a copy of
She
it.
got the
Did I miss
survey.
it?
I had it.
The survey? Oh, silly me.
It's separate from the house plan. If anyone needs one, there you go.
I don't think I got it.
Oh, my bad. My
No,
bad.
some of us did and some of us didn't. You got it, I did.
Oh,
You didn't get it either, did you?
Hmm?
You get it?
I got it, my fault.
Oh,
My fault.
Somebody got it.
I did.
The letters,
So that's that, that's that. Oh, you got one. That's there, that's there, that's there.
No, I didn't get it.
Okay. Now, this house this is 2-story, correct? There is a
That's
second story in the
Originally, it
center
was,
section of the house?
originally it was a cape,
Uh-huh.
and as we know, capes have heating and icicle problems. So when we looked at rebuilding the house, I suggested to the Kings that we go with a full 2 stories so we get full insulation over the walls all the way across the house. So there's 2 bedrooms up, one master bedroom on the first floor. So rather than cape, it's going to be a 2-story, yes.
And are you moving the driveway?
We're going to go with a front load driveway, front load garage. Right now it's a side load,
Mm-hmm.
and
Well,
Todd
it
indicated
was a side.
it was a side load. And there was quite a bit of maneuvering, he said, to get the car into the garage, because they have to pull up, back up. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna move the driveway and make it a front load garage.
Okay. All right, listen, we'll find points on the clarify. Anyone else on the board?
No problem with the conversation as yet.
No,
Okay.
and all the neighbors said, okay. I see that you.
We sent out 75 notices,
Yeah,
and we had no negative comments from anyone. And as you can see, I mean, it's open to the public to speak, but I don't think there's anyone here to speak against it.
I don't see a groundswell of negativity coming at us. I haven't received any responses to the affirmative or the negative, which is always good. No,
People usually show up when they're angry about something.
that's true. I'm sure the neighbors would much prefer their
Well, it's
neighbors to
gonna be-
rebuild their house and make a nice new house.
Yeah, it's gonna be an enhancement to the neighborhood. I think it's a benefit to the neighborhood. Front porches are coming back. For a while, the colonials were built without front porches, and now people like, they want to sit on the front porch again, which is kind of nice. It's a nice trend, I like it.
No problem.
Come on, you guys are mad at this flag.
No, I drove by, I think it's
It's
kind
gonna be
of,
cute.
yeah, I think it's gonna look great. I mean, I live in the neighborhood, so I think it's gonna look great.
You'll notice on the plans, before we knew we needed a garage variance, I told the architect, draw the plans with optional front porch, so if we don't get the variance, then we can still build a house without it. So
Right, I did
he
notice
shows it an optional front porch.
Okay.
Still looks nice with front porch.
Now, you are gonna save the basement.
Basement's there, yeah, we took the house down, Empire Wrecking took the house down. They broke a few blocks around the top when they pulled the floor off, but not bad at all. So we're going to repair the existing foundation and reuse it. That's the only thing that made it cost effective to replace the house rather than remodel it or repair it.
Sure.
We save about $15,000 to $20,000 to save the old basement.
Right.
So it's a pretty significant.
No issue.
And it's in good shape.
Right.
Basement's
So,
in good shape.
I mean, obviously you lost the house, but the sewer, water, everything, all underground is.
Everything's there. As a matter of fact, the plumbing's under the slab. You know, there's plumbing under the slab for, you know, the bathrooms in the back of the house and so on. So it needs to be cleaned up.
Mhm.
Other than that, it's in good shape. Structurally, it's in good shape.
Well, that's the
I'm
key.
just curious, what was the cause of the fire? I mean, it's-
Wood burn stuff. Got a lot up the ceiling. It's fun.
We're going to add an egress window to bring it up to code. Code requires an egress window on all basements now in the houses. So we're gonna add that.
That satisfies the board? All right, I will open it up for any public comment if our guests would care to make a statement, one way or the other.
Richard
Greg, you
Waldo,
always have something to say.
20 Elm Street. I love the idea. I understand the need for larger garages. As you know, I'm building a larger one, the full extent of the code, but
Sure.
no variance. And a front porch can only add to the neighborhood. So,
Well, my neighbors
and
are
Todd's a
all
good
sorry
friend,
about it.
so.
I see it.
I know, you would, you would be hard pressed to find opposition for front porch construction because, I mean, villages, I think, I mean, I have a big front porch on my house and I use it all the time, so I would hardly, if ever, want to say anything against it. And, you know, the code written as it is, 600 square feet is 600 square feet, but it doesn't, it might be a little bit behind the times in what we do in modern day with our vehicles are bigger.
You know,
You know, depending on your lot, you're gonna have a rider mower, you've got a snow blower, you need a little bit of room to store our toys.
Yeah. Personally, I think it's much more attractive to have a slightly larger garage than have a shed in the backyard.
Right,
To store your extra stuff. And it's
Right.
secure space, better than a shed.
right, and as you stated, I mean, it's the depth, it's not the width. So from a functionally aesthetic perspective, you're not overwhelming the front of the house with a super wide garage, and you're stretching it out in the back, which is technically invisible.
It's
so
very
to speak.
aesthetically pleasing.
You have plenty of lot, so the coverage issues are not, there's no coverage issues, and I wish I had a 24 by 34 garage attached to my house. Say that. Okay, that ends our public comment, back to the board. Any other thoughts? Okay, if there are no objections, then I will put forth that we need a motion to, and Joe, I'm not 100% certain on this, you might be able to help me with it, because you were in the same class as I was. Would this be considered a type 2 unlisted action for seeker?
It should be, yes.
Right, I believe so, because the environmental impact is negligible considering, I mean, they're just, in essence, replicating what, improving upon what was there, and just the variances for the garage, increase in size in the front porch, and just variance requests. So, let's start off with the motion. First motion we need is to have this application as a type 2 seeker.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay. Second motion is to positive or negative recommendation to the Webster Zoning Board of Appeals for a variance of, what is it, 120 square feet for the addition, or for the inclusion of a larger than allowed garage, attached garage to the house. So a variance request for 120 square feet to the zoning board, positive recommendation or negative recommendation.
Make that motion for positive recommendation to the zoning board for 120 square feet to expand the garage. What about the porch?
It's the next motion.
Okay. All right.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And then the third motion on the application for a 5-foot setback variance for the addition of the optional front porch to be constructed on the home. Code setback requirement is 40 feet, you are requesting 35 feet setback, so a 5-foot variance request on the front setback.
I'll make that motion.
Positive or negative
Positive.
recommendation? Positive recommendation to the zoning board of appeals.
I'll second that.
Peter seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you very much. On to the ZBA.
On to the ZBA.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Good luck to you.
Good luck, yes.
Actually, you know what, now that I'm thinking about this, I should have probably had Ed go first, because he wants to recommend colors. But I'm sure, I am confident that we're going to pick aesthetically pleasing colors and materials to
And
match
this
the
is
neighborhood.
picking out already.
His wife is picking the colors.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have, not on the agenda officially, but nevertheless, we have our esteemed guest, Mr. Ed Atkinson from the Webster Historic Preservation Board, would like to give us a lesson in historic colors.
I'm here, I want to do two things tonight. One is I just wanted to introduce myself to the board because I haven't been before the board. Just wanted to say, hey, we're here. I'm Ed Atkinson. I'm the chairman of the Village of Webster Historic Preservation Commission. Want to let you know what we do a little bit. What we've been doing. We've just recently got the Harmony House put on the National Historic Register. That was a 2-year process. It took a while. And we joint ventured with the Harmony House, actually the trustees and the village went in on part of this, and we did and kind of pulled our resources and had it nominated, got it through. We also just recently got the Pioneer Cemetery put on the village historic register, which is kind of, that's an ongoing project. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's a little plot of land up there on Main. You drive by it, sometimes you don't even see it, but there's a sign up there now.
I just saw
I
it.
just saw the sign, yeah.
Yep. We plan on putting some fencing on the corners to kind of further define it. So those are things that we've been doing. We've also been doing, we do, I don't know if you, I wanted to make you aware of it. There's what we call the 130. There was a study done that the village paid for back in the 80s that declared or made the registered 130 structures in the village that were significant historic architectural. And there is a big binder and it's all listed in the, there's a copy in the village vault and some other places. But we always keep eye on those things in terms of the top, we call them top 130 because they all have interesting architectural character. Just recently we had to let go of one of them that got demolished. That was up on Main Street. Believe it or not, that one that was next to the motorcycle shop.
Yeah,
That was on the 130 list.
the one they let go.
Yeah, it didn't let go too far.
Yeah.
So we had to let that go. So want to let you know what we do, kind of, and my understanding is we sort of come in under your body to some extent. So we wanted to say, hey, that's what we're doing. Now on to colors. Judy Lansing started this a year or two ago, and we had a lot of discussions about it. Judy kind of pioneered some of those things about, well, we're getting ready to talk about colors. And we started out with, Judy went down and talked to a colorist. This was a woman who was at Sherwin-Williams. And she's a trained person for colors. That's all she does, picks colors. So Judy sat down with her and told her the areas that we were trying to, part of this all came about because of some wild or big kind of, what do I say? I don't know, they weren't offensive, but some colors that were up on Main Street. And there were, my understanding was there were a lot of people that took offense to some of the wild colors that they were
Let's use
using.
the word bold.
Bold, there you go, that's it, bold colors.
Yeah.
Non-historic colors, bold colors. Yeah, so that's where we were coming from in all this. And where we're going with all this is we're trying to establish or get some just recommendations on colors for the Central District Business District up on Main Street. Not the village, not anything else, just that area up there on the Central Business District. So with that said, I wanted to pass out some of these colors just to get you familiar with them. This is what this colorist has selected. Some of these are
So you're
new.
talking about the new development, that's all the new stores that are going in?
Anything new that would come in or get renovated, of course.
Like to share.
Part of what I wanted to speak about was all this, there are design guidelines established, but they're voluntary. They're not mandatory. And this color thing is all set as voluntary also. It's nothing we're saying is mandatory. But right now, if you go to your design guidelines, there's no reference at all to color, other than it should be, they say it's stored colors. Well, when we read through that, we said there really ought to be something a little condensed and say, if you're going to try and comply and go with these with the design guidelines, which I'm assuming sometimes you inform applicants that there are design guidelines, that at least they have a resource to go to and say, hey, this is what we think, at least the Village of Webster Historical Preservation Commission is appropriate in terms of colors. I think there's 15 colors in there, in there that have been established. Now, the colors are a little muted because they're copies. They're a little more vivid if you see the actual colors out. But anyway, so I wanted to come before the planning board tonight and get their take on this and see what they had to say about it and see if you guys are in agreement with it. If so, we will kind of move forward. I think the next step would be to have an amendment done to the zoning or the design guidelines to include these in there, even though they're all just suggested colors, but at least we can get them in there. So with that said, I wanted to kind of either leave it with you and get your opinion about it, but I'd like to get something at least formal that says, okay, planning board's on board with this, they like this, or no, we really think we shouldn't be doing, some sort of opinion, so we can move forward. And then I think the next step would be, assuming we're good with this, we would go to the trustee mayor board and ask for a revision to the design guidelines.
So a question,
Yes?
these colors, is it just for the facade, or is it for the entire
No,
building?
no, this is for the exterior front facade on, not
Not the entire building, just the facade?
just the facade, yeah, not interior at all. So.
No, but it's not the whole building either, because most of
What
them.
you see, yeah, that's what, well, on Main Street, all you see is the facade.
Right.
Mostly, because they're right, property line. So.
Right.
So that's my 2 cents on
Well, I mean, it certainly seems that there's enough variety here. And the
We're very
fact,
happy.
right, the fact that, I mean, they are a suggestion. And I'm sure if somebody said, well, I don't like these, but how about something in this color family? You know, that's close, but not exact. I mean, because they are suggestions, people still have the latitude to
Right.
say, okay, you know, I can't, you know, we're obviously gonna put up a stink if you say, I want neon pink. No.
Right.
But if you want, you know, some kind of rosy pink, or some, tone it down, then you have a better shot at getting through the process.
I will tell you, as a commercial architect, and doing a lot of retail over my career, retail people want that extra flash. And yet sometimes that's why you get these odd color things, so they can stand out, you know?
Right.
But there has to be kind of a balance here between painting something pink or
Right.
orange.
Well, there's always the struggle of what is existing, you know, in your neighbors and your surroundings.
Right.
What is the character of where you're building? And frankly, I am appalled at some of the things that I've seen that have gotten built in other places. And you go, how the heck did they get that to be built there? And you scratch your head and you wonder. And of course, you know, then you also have not only the color issues to deal with, but you also have the material issues to deal with. You know, whether people want to introduce the different architectural products that are out there, all the different stone products, all the different glass, you know, aluminum systems. So,
Those materials are actually addressed in these design guidelines to some
Mhm.
extent about what's appropriate and what's not.
right.
So we didn't go there, we noticed that there's nothing in here about color. And so
Right.
there's also a thing in here, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Will about it, but under property improvement permits, there is a notation here about, it says, a change in facade material, color, or design greater than 200 square feet in aggregate within an 18-month period is supposed to be, you know, come under this design guideline. So that was the other thing we talked about is what happens when somebody just goes and paints their building. And there's really no mechanism in there right now to get them to say, hey, other than talking with Will, said, by the way, are you aware that there's some design guidelines? You might want to look at them, and there's a color palette in there. That's kind of, at least we can get that far is where we're going with it.
So, within the confines though of the central business district, so can someone just go out and change the color of their building without?
Sure can.
A loophole.
That's because all these guidelines are all just voluntary. Nothing's ever been acted.
Right.
Now, I think, well, my understanding is these sort of come into play when they're coming before at a new building.
Right.
Good. Then you say, oh, by the way, did you see? Yeah.
So are these gonna become code, or are they gonna be recommendations?
No, they'll be included as recommendations. And they'll be under this design guidelines, which are not code.
Right.
Do other villages enforce them as code? Because I'm thinking Pittsford in my head.
Yeah,
And the colors are very muted, very soft. There's
Right.
no buildings that really like stand out.
They're zoned under code.
Yeah.
why are ours under code?
Well, I remember trying that 20 years ago or so, remember? Oh my goodness, talk about an audience. Our village people did not want to hear about what color to paint my house.
Right.
Well, I
Yeah.
don't mean houses, I'm talking about
Business
commercial
district,
businesses.
The other thing that I will mention is, part of this assignment is I'll be talking to the bid also. They're an organization. Make sure that they're on board with this too. So,
And you probably run into the problem of who owns the building and who's renting it for their business. You probably find mine there too.
Right. Because we work on the signage too, and that's still not.
Yes, I'm in favor of adding it to to the design standards as recommended colors?
Give you, I don't know if here's what I'm aware of the colorist did. Now, she and both Judy walked those streets, and a lot of this colors is actually picked up off of the existing brick colors and things that are out there on Main Street. So they're all supposed to blend with some of this, because the brick buildings, they're not going to, other than their trim, the brick's going to stay. And it's that's kind of a base color that they can work with, play off.
Well, people have been known to paint brick.
Well, that's what I was gonna
Well,
say.
yeah,
Is that gonna-
that would not be smart.
Yeah, I know that, but.
Yeah. All right, so that's
So,
it for
Ed,
me.
I have not heard any fierce opposition to accepting the recommended colors, into, a package within confines of the central business district, or recommended colors.
I would request that I get maybe some sort of documentation, either a form of a motion or some sort of thing that says, hey, we're good with that.
I have a question.
Yes,
Because it's a recommendation and it's not code, they don't have to follow it.
correct.
Right.
Yeah, so it's really, this is kind of a, yeah.
But if someone did come with an application that was just wild, and we, as the board, are gonna look at all that.
But the existing business district, they're not gonna come and apply before us.
Unfortunately, that is a
Right.
problem whereby the existing is the existing.
Right.
You never know, you could have a couple buildings burned down, you could have one demolished, and then somebody want to come in new, there's all sorts of.
Right, but then they'd have to come through permit and all that stuff and present.
Right.
So you get them on new builds or
Right.
major renovations, anytime they would have to go through the permit process, then that would be our opportunity. You have, the shortfall is if someone just wants to, on their own volition, paint their structure, it's like, oh, well, there's not much you can say or do about it.
Here, this, I would say this helps get some of the arbitrariness out of it, because right now the code just says something to the effect, in tune with the historic colors of New York. And so now we're saying, okay, we've got 16 colors to start out with, it's not arbitrary,
I'd rather see it become code.
Well,
Well, that's, first step is this, and then.
the first, as it states, the first step is to actually accept this list of recommended colors into, any considerations for, I would say guideline, recommended guidelines for colors for any new builds, renovations that come through the permit process. I mean, sure, we can say that at this point. Can we-
Well, yeah. Actually, my understanding is I've got to go and get this included. You got to go before the Board of Trustees and Mayor to get this actually put in as although it's not code, as if proceeded, if it was code, into the design guidelines as an amendment.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and getting code changes, that's a process.
I know.
To get everything accepted into the process, that's a change
Yes.
changing revisions to the
Yeah,
village
even
code.
this getting it accepted into that, it's gonna be a process.
Oh,
You
yes,
got to do
indeed.
it, yeah, public hearing, the reading and all that
Right.
stuff.
But the first step is to at least get a consensus that we're on board to say, yes, this is, the first stepping stone, as opposed to fierce opposition that said, no,
Yeah.
this is too restrictive,
Right.
we're not of that ilk. So, I don't know,
You could potentially, if you're ready at this point in time, do a motion that you would recommend to the village board to consider.
There you go.
yeah,
There you go.
oh, I like the word, Joe.
Yes.
Yeah. And if David was here, I would ask David from a legal perspective, what's the proper phraseology? But in his absence, I would certainly say, if, just as a matter of record, we can make a motion that these colors be accepted and a positive recommendation to the village board that these these base colors be considered as, you know, the starting point for color palette selection for any development within the business district.
Question,
Yes.
can we exclude any of these colors?
Oh, man.
Ooh,
Yes, you can.
well,
Let me see, these are the actual, that's the actual color palette. This one, if you flip it over there. They're pretty close to what this one.
See, that looks better.
Down there, because we were saying those two are like,
now we're gonna find out which color Judy doesn't like.
well, there's two we don't like.
Well, on the paper, this purple looked awful, but actually, in the color
More of a
sample,
plum or something.
it's better, yeah.
Because it does
Yeah.
look plummy, and this one looks too muted, it does not look, where there, it's almost like a khaki rose, it's not really.
My color copier wasn't the best.
But there again, remember, suggestions.
Mhm.
So, I mean, if it comes with neon pink or
Mhm.
fluorescent yellow, you're gonna have issues.
They're real pretty.
So,
Yes, they are. Very nice colors.
So,
Okay, I'll make a motion that we, what do? We make a positive recommendation to the village board to consider these colors to be added to the design standards, or whatever that is called.
right, the design standards and guidelines for
Right.
new development and construction in the central business district.
I'd second that motion.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
As long as it's
Motion
this sheet
carries.
and not this sheet.
Okay, Ed,
Uh,
step one,
There we go, yeah, we gotta, it takes a while.
you have no opposition from the board.
That's good.
You want these?
No, you can keep those if you want to. I'll take it back if you don't want to.
Well, thanks for coming out and introducing yourself.
Yes, Ed, thank you for
Thank
coming.
you, Ed.
Well,
Next demolition we have, we'll be in touch.
Yeah, we had a slew up there, just to,
We did.
there's a, I gotta talk, I still haven't had, don't mean to keep you waiting here, but, there's a, Will and I had a brief conversation about this. It seems like there's an out-of-sequence thing about demolition permits, because you grant demolition permits, but you make it contingent on it's not historical structure, right?
Actually, the way I understand it, before we can make a recommendation for the demolition permit, your board or organization is supposed to have already
Signed up.
let Will know that it's historic or non-historic, or, and because he obviously, at the permit time, would know if the structure is salvageable, is it, can it even be considered to be saved? Because the structures that we've already been dealing with have already been deemed too far gone. But we couldn't go right ahead and say we make a recommendation for the demolition permit because we didn't have the letter from the historic board that says.
Right,
Right.
And
So
we-
I
then we
think
ran into-
things got a little out of whack.
right, and we couldn't, we ran into it because we got off on meetings, so I had to wait till the next meeting so
Right.
we could vote, because we act just like you guys did on the board, and so.
We just had that with the Xerox shed,
The
Now
Xerox
missing
barn,
Xerox.
that's right, the one on Kircher
because we
Park.
didn't know if it was historic or not.
We weren't sure either, we had to research on it, yeah.
Mhm.
And we couldn't recommend anything
Your
until
village,
it came.
right.
Right, because you're in the village too.
Hmm?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think,
Where I was
I
going-
think there was a timing sequence problem.
Well, it seemed like to me that on demolition, that we ought to be, to expedite things, get us notified first. If there's an application for a permit, okay, and then if he can flag it and say, oh, no, this might be a historic structure or something, let us kind of do it, and then we say, no, it has no merit, or yeah, we're really gonna try and do something with it. Most of the time, there's no merit. And then it goes on to you, and you don't have to make a decision that's contingent upon
Right.
us. Yeah.
Well, does Will have a list of the 130?
Oh, yeah, he's worth it.
So he probably, he knows in advance when the application's made, whether it's one of the 130 or not.
However,
Well,
I will
or any-
flag it, there are other structures in the village that are architecturally significant that are not on the 130.
Right.
So,
So, I think the sequence needs to be, since obviously, if someone is requesting a permit, it's gonna go to Will. So Will is the point of contact that should go to you first. And of course, I could pick on Will because he's not here tonight.
Right.
So-
Yeah, I wish you would. I'm sure he's got an explanation about all this, but, you know.
Right, so, but I mean, I think that is necessary procedure, is if someone comes forth with a permit, requesting a demo permit, then they would have to go to the historic board first, or have Will contact you guys and say, hey, you know, you
Yeah,
get
we'll
first,
look
you
into
get
it,
first,
and we- yeah.
first look at it, and then, before that permit, or before they get on our agenda for a demolition permit, that you have already had a look
Right,
at.
and just to let you know on time,
I get-
when the barn came up, and we were asking for, of course, it came up before board, and we said, well, we're not sure, we've got to do some research on this and figure out, does it have historical significance? Well, that was another 30 days of
Right.
research. So it doesn't happen just like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but they were already on the agenda looking for
Yeah, wires.
the demo permit, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I wish I could help you, but we can't.
Right.
So, it prolonged the process, so. Great.
In the past, a few years ago, what would happen is as soon as somebody came to Will, the historic committee would be notified.
Right.
And so they would have a chance to look at it before your meeting, because your meeting has to be posted 30 days or whatever in advance in the paper.
Right,
So they would have that time to look at it, and they would come to the meeting, a representative would come to your meeting and report.
right,
If they had had the time in between to come up with a decision, they would actually come here to do their report.
so
So you would have the information.
I wonder why that's not, hasn't happened, or just, is
When
it timing?
when are your meetings? What,
We just changed them to the third Thursday, I think.
okay, so this is where the notifications become a problem. Because if you have your meeting on the third Thursday, we don't have enough time to put a notice in the Herald for a public hearing for the next board meeting. So now we're waiting an additional 30 days after that to even have an initial hearing at planning. Because the third Thursday, when we meet on the first Thursday of the month, we have to have the notice in the paper a minimum of 10 days prior.
Well, if that's the case, then we just maybe have to plan ahead and say, hey, you may be 45 days out to get a permit.
Right.
Right,
Well, what would happen as soon as Will found out there, before it was even scheduled, if their meeting was in between those dates, you could do both, depending on when the application was presented to Will.
yeah,
If it was presented in the right, at the right date, you could do both, but sometimes you can't.
Right.
So sometimes it would delay it another month, but
That's why I brought up the
That
barn,
halfway
because
house
we,
in the barn.
that actually did come in a kind of a time when it hit, that's right, but we couldn't act on it because we had to do research on it,
Right.
to figure out.
right.
the facts and-
Just because you get the application doesn't mean you can do anything with it, because
Right.
you need the time to. find out
also
what it is.
somewhere in the office, whether it be Will or somebody, I don't know who, there has been problem, I know with mine, where once the historic committee acted on it after the recommendation of the notice never got to me
Oh,
for a while. Somewhere it got lost, and then they have to come up with so my project sits in limbo while we find the notice, because no contractor or architect will go ahead
right,
unless they all the paperwork's there.
yeah,
And
I think a lot is, I just need to sit down with Will and have a conversation and get some sort of procedure going.
right. Or revive whatever protocols were in place, if maybe, it's entirely possible that, there's such a lapse between things that might want to be demoed that you kind of forget what to do after a while. So, just got to, reestablish the protocols, I'm sure. So,
All right.
so,
Well,
thank you,
for-
Ed, we certainly appreciate you coming.
Thank you very
Don't be a
much.
stranger.
No, we won't, so we'll-
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, and the last thing I would like to do is encourage the board members to take a look at the training opportunities that are available. I believe we are required to have 4 hours of training per year at a minimum. And these are your opportunity, if you can get away from work, to, get a little lunch and get a little training. And boy, they are very exciting classes.
And repetitions when you're here.
So, okay, with that, I believe that concludes everything we had to address on our agenda. So would someone care to make a motion to end this meeting at 8:20 p.m.?
I'll make a motion to end the meeting at 8:20 p.m.
I'll second that.
And all in favor?
Okay.
All right, motion carries. Thank you, good people.